Hello everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Dayspring Discussions. I'm your host, Sean McGahee. This is a show where we talk about movies, TV, sci-fi, fantasy, comic books. If you geek out about it, we're going to talk about it. You can listen to Dayspring Discussions on iTunes, YouTube, Podomatic, Patreon, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, wherever, guys. While you're there, go ahead and rate, review, subscribe, then head on over to the Facebook group and Twitter account and join in the discussion. Don't forget dayspringdiscussions@gmail.com. You guys have a question or a topic you want me to bring up, go ahead and just slide an email over there and I'll be sure to talk about it. And as always, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram, SlingDayspring12. Well, hello, everyone. I know I already said that, but hope you all are getting your week started off right this Monday morning. We're all here. We're all, bunkered down and getting through this, of course, trying to keep our kitchen stocked full of essentials, and of course trying to live with each other as we are all in close quarters and trying not to kill each other, of course. This morning we had a little bit of a rough start here. My daughter is kind of doing this whole homeschool thing. My wife's got a schedule for her to do some work, and it's a little rough start to say the least, but I think we're on the right track, and hopefully moving forward for the rest of the week, we'll be good to go. But I hope, again, your week's starting off good. If you're locked down with your kids, hopefully you haven't killed them yet already. But yes, I've been trying to keep busy myself. Been going through season 3 of Black Lightning. I'm about halfway through, I think, the season right now. I'm really enjoying it a lot, so I am liking that. And then, of course, like I said, I'm going to go through the DC animated shared universe. I just watched Batman Bad Blood, and I got to tell you, the last couple days I watched Son of Batman, Batman versus Robin, and then Batman Bad Blood, and it's such a good trilogy in my eyes. Actually, the animated DC stuff is so great. Just great stuff to watch there. And of course, good time to remind you that on the Facebook group and Twitter account, we're doing the March Madness quarantine brackets, the DC animated shared universe. Every day I'm going to put a new matchup on there, and we're going to count down to see which one the best ones are. Today it's Batman Bad Blood versus the Death of Superman. I vote Death of Superman, but some people, it seems to be Batman Bad Blood is winning. That's okay. I'm a Superman fan, though, so that's why I kind of like it a little more. And that's what I'm really going to talk about today. There was an article, I posted it up on the Facebook group about, it's from ranker.com, and 15 reasons there will never be a good Superman movie. Now, this was posted back in October, so it's a little dated, but I saw it on a link, one of those, Facebook things that's in my news feed, and I clicked on it, and I read the reasons, and I was immediately offended by this as a Superman fan. Then I went back and read the article written by a guy named Aaron Edwards, and his reasons underneath are, pretty valid. He seems to be, a rather intelligent fellow, but what I want to do as a Superman fan is go through these reasons and tell you why, kind of like how Aaron did, how the filmmakers might be getting it wrong or might not be getting what is great about Superman, and how Superman, I feel, is kind of an easy character to do as far as movie and storytelling wise, and why they're missing the point of it, perhaps. Now, I always said there are 3 things in this world that if you get me started talking about, I will talk forever. 1 is X-Men, 2 is Star Wars, and 3 is Superman. So this might be a little lengthy, guys, so I might ramble on some of these things, so I apologize in advance. Now, I've been a Superman fan for many, many years, pretty much going back to the Death of Superman. I remember walking into the comic book store that day and seeing that issue number 75 of Superman, where he died, of course. And ever since then, I've been a Superman fan, really. I remember going through, the Funeral for a Friend, Reign of Superman, the Death of Clark Kent, the Fall of Metropolis, all that stuff, all the way up through the, New Krypton. Kind of lost me around New 52 because I wasn't a big fan, but back on track now with Rebirth. I'm really liking Some of the storylines they have, of course, that they've given him a son, and being that I'm a father now myself, I can relate to the whole child aspect of it all. But the character himself, I've always been a big fan of because, kind of like with, say, Captain America or Cyclops from the X-Men, these are characters that most people consider Boy Scouts that always do the right thing. Some consider them not relatable. Some consider them outdated, where more edgier characters like Batman or Wolverine or Iron Man are a little more cooler. I disagree with that. I find them to have much strength of character because as I've gotten older in life, I've realized that doing the right thing when no one else is the hardest thing to do. You can disagree with me on that. That's fine. But in my life, it's very easy to do the wrong thing, to do the selfish thing, but to do the right thing, I find is the toughest choice to make. And that's what they do. That's what Superman does. And he wants to be this beacon of hope, to shine the light to see what humanity can be. And they will stumble, they will fall, but eventually they will follow you into the light, to paraphrase what Jor-El says to him. So, all right. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Also, obviously, too, the way Ranker works, the way I think it works at least, is they write the article and then they give their reasons, and then people can vote on whether they think it's the better reason or the less reason. I go to Ranker every once in a while just to see it. But again, this one struck home for me, so I had to talk about it. But anyway, number one, filmmakers never find ways to use all his powers. With Superman, he's got a buttload of powers. Like if anyone, if a genie came out of a bottle and said, "What superhero do you want the powers of?" Obviously, it's Superman, right? I mean, my second choice would probably be Aquaman, because that way I can breathe underwater and still be strong. But Superman, he's got flight, strength, super speed, heat vision, super hearing, X-ray vision, freeze breath. I think I said super hearing, right? Yeah, he's got a lot of powers, of course. So who wouldn't want all those powers? And like I said, it is a bit to try to use all of them. I mean, the nice thing about a show with Smallville is he developed them throughout 10 years. Like each season he would get a new power they discovered. First season he got his super hearing. What was it? X-ray vision. No, X-ray vision. Second season he got his heat vision. Third season he got his hearing. I know in season 6 he got his freeze breath, and then of course obviously in the series finale he got his flight. So there's a lot of powers to go through, and I don't think you have to go through all of them. Obviously the flight, the strength, the speed are the main 3. Heat vision I think is probably number 4, or hearing. You don't have to use all of them at the same time, but you can sparsely use them. I know not a lot of people use the freeze breath. That's kind of the least on the list of what you use as far as Superman's powers, and I understand it, of course, too. And I don't think it's essential, but I don't think showing all of his powers is a reason why the character is failing. Because to me, Superman's not a character that's about his powers, or at least not the important part. I like to reference Kingdom Come. Great storyline about when at the end Superman is attacking, I think it's the UN or something like it, and the gentleman who has been witnessing all of this says you can't put the super before the man. And that's what it's about. It's about humanizing this godlike character and showing that he inside is just like everyone else. And again, that's something that telling a good Superman story, you really have to focus on, not on how many incredible powers he has. All right, number 2 on the list of Ranker, Lois is always in trouble. It's a Superman, staple that Superman saves Lois. Lois goes out to chase a story. She gets caught by the bad guys, and Superman's got to save her. It's kind of the epitome, what Superman's stories are like it. Now they did reference, of course, in this article about how in Superman Returns, a film which I enjoy quite a bit, that's actually it's Lois and her family that actually save Superman, take the kryptonite out of him and save him from dying in the water. But most of the time, it is Lois who's in peril. That's a Superman trope. I don't think you're ever going to get away from that. And I don't think you need to because of who Lois is. And it's going to tie in a little bit down the ways when it regards to her relationship or his relationship with Lois. About how Lois, the reason Superman is attracted to Lois is he sees her as this strong, independent woman, is very different from other women that he knows. He grew up on the farm, small town, talking to those people. He comes to the big city and he meets Lois Lane, unlike anyone he's ever met before. But he sees that Lois is just out for the truth. She's a journalist. She wants the truth of the matter. And Superman, who stands for truth, justice, and the American way, of course there's going to be some attraction there about, she's trying to do the same thing that he is and just do the right thing. So Lois being in peril, I don't think we're ever going to get away from that, and I don't think we ever should get away from that. Number 3 on the ranker list, no one knows how to use Jimmy Olsen. Honestly, I could say that too. Jimmy's never been an important part of the Superman theatrical films. Again, it's someone who just Superman saves. In the article, I know he talks about how in Batman v Superman, Jimmy Olsen was there, actually. And they didn't even reference his name unless you watch the extended cut or the Ultimate Edition, as it's called, where Jimmy Olsen is actually posing as a photographer, and he's actually a CIA spy with Lois, and he gets shot and killed. And that's Jimmy Olsen. Now, they have kind of a substitute in Man of Steel and Batman v Superman of Jenny. Now, originally, I think it was supposed to be Jenny Olsen. I remember when I first saw this, I had a little bit of a problem with it. Kind of like with Lois, Jimmy is his tie to humanity, or part of his tie to humanity that keeps him grounded. Jimmy is this young, doe-eyed character that believes the best in people. And Jimmy, as what I would think, is what Superman fights for. It's what he stands for. He stands for the hopeful, for the people that think that things can get better and be better, and that people deep down are good. Jimmy is the prime example of what Superman wants humanity to be. And I don't think he's been utilized in that way in the movies. But then again, you keep going back to the original origin story so many times that, you have to tell the Lois story first. That takes precedent. That's the most important relationship. So that comes before the Jimmy Olsen story. But if you look at also in the TV series, you have Lois and Clark, you have Smallville, the DC, the animated Superman series from the 90s, early 2000s had a little bit of that in there, but not enough. And I think, again, if you did a series, you could show that more, but there are other things that take precedent over the Jimmy Olsen relationship with Superman. Still maybe one of the top 5 relationships, but, Lois, his parents, his Lex Luthor relationship, I think those are the more important ones. All right, number 4, kryptonite is the only way to create a fair fight. It's also boring. In my head, I have this idea for a great Superman trilogy, or what I think would make a great Superman trilogy. And in the first movie, Superman fights Metallo, who is powered by kryptonite. So not only does he fight someone that is a physical match for him, but also, can hurt him with kryptonite. It's not starting out with Zod, who is his exact equal, or Doomsday, who is arguably more powerful than he is. It's the buildup. Kryptonite by itself, just by Lex Luthor, I gotta say, isn't that great. I mean, it was in the first Superman movie. It's same thing in Superman Returns. But for me, Kryptonite is, yes, kind of boring when it's by itself. If you add it again to a character such as Metallo, who, again, physically can hold his own against Superman, but then has something a little extra again the fight, it becomes something that is actually somewhat useful, really. Kryptonite by itself, yes, not great. Kryptonite, while mixed in with another villain or something else, I will agree, or what I will say is an acceptable accessory to a Superman villain. Number 5 on the ranker list, no one will ever be better cast than Christopher Reeves. I grew up, Christopher Reeves was my Superman, of course. Then you also had Dean Cain in Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. So those were my live action versions of Superman. And I think Christopher Reeves was the perfect choice for Superman the movie of that time. I mean, Superman the movie, it's the film that is the high standard for Superman films, but really Superman films in general and what they were able to do with the character and at that time make him relevant for that time, it was great. Christopher Reeves, may he rest in peace, I like Henry Cavill. I think he is a good Superman, but given bad material to work with, okay? I'm not a big fan of Man of Steel. The original Batman v Superman theatrical cut I'm not a fan of. Justice League is one big hot mess. But Henry Cavill himself, I think, plays a good Superman and a good Clark Kent. He just hasn't gotten the right script that would help bring it out. And sadly, I don't think he ever will. I think it has nothing to do with, and no one will be better cast than Christopher Reeves. I think it's placing the right Superman with the right actor in the right film is what it comes down to. With every film, obviously, it's making a good film is hard, okay? You got to have the right story, the right director, the right cast, the right set design, the right special effects. Otherwise, nothing works. So it's all, one big pot of soup, and, you got to get the stew right. Otherwise, it just throws it all off. Number 6, he has the same romance over and over again. Well, that's kind of going back to the fact that he's saving Lois over and over again. Yes, when you do a Superman origin, it's about Lois. Now, you could throw in other romances in there, starting off with Lana Lang. You could throw in Lois. You could throw in Wonder Woman later down the road. But if you're starting off with a Superman origin story, it's got to be about him and Lois, and eventually it's got to come back to him and Lois. Now, one thing I will credit and really like Man of Steel about is that Lois found out about Clark before he became Superman. She knew, when he put on the suit, who he was. She knew who he was when he walked into the Daily Planet for that job. And again, to me, that's a way of modernizing the storyline rather than having just naive Lois not knowing who he is and going years without ever finding out, again, just because of a pair of glasses. I could say more about that, but I'll leave it at that. Yes, it's going to be about Lois. Any Superman origin story is. It's about telling it in a new way, and I think both Smallville and Man of Steel were able to tell the romance between Clark and Lois in a new way that I think was great. So whatever the new origin will be, you just have to tell it in a new way. Or in a modern way. All right, number 7 on the ranker list. Directors find it impossible to not get over Jesus metaphors. Especially going back to the death of Superman, how he rose from the grave. Of course, there have been, many metaphors about the character, especially in Superman Returns and Justice League / Batman v Superman. I totally get it. And people see him as that Christ-like figure because he is also powerful. He is that beacon of hope that it's a standard that people should try to live up to. So there are those comparisons for Jesus. But also, Superman going way back was always the metaphor of the modern immigrant at the time. I mean, his creators were two Jewish kids from Cleveland, right? So they were all about, the American dream, someone coming here and making something of himself. I think it's easy, honestly, to get away from that metaphor, if in my eyes. If anything, make it about, again, immigration, really, which could be a great modern context in today's world as well, too. You don't have to keep it on the Jesus metaphors. So I don't like that, reasoning as to why you can't make Superman work in a modern film. Number 8, the stakes are so huge, they're meaningless. Superman is a powerful being. Superman is also an alien. A lot of his foes, minus Lex Luthor, are of great power and usually alien. Brainiac, Mongol, Darkseid, Lobo, they're all intergalactic, and that's fine. Zod, he's an alien. You can make those still great stories. Darkseid and Brainiac, like I said, the Superman trilogy that I have in my head, Brainiac or Zod would be your second villain of the trilogy, followed by Darkseid. But Zod and Brainiac would have to make it personal, given the fact that, Zod is from Krypton, or Brainiac, what he did to Kandor City, making it a personal story for him, then going over to Darkseid, where, yes, alien invasion, but Darkseid is the antithesis of everything that Superman believes, but yet he's so powerful, Superman can't beat him on pure strength. There's a great episode, it's the series finale of the Superman animated series, after Darkseid had brainwashed Superman to attack Earth, and he comes out of it, and then he goes after Darkseid, and he's actually beating Darkseid. And the people of Apokolips, who are Darkseid's servants, actually come to his aid. And Superman doesn't understand why they try to protect Darkseid when he treats them so bad. And there's a really good story, I think, in all of that about theology, or whatever you want to call it, a difference of opinions. It's a very interesting. I think, again, you have these big characters, but when you boil it down to the personal story of each of them, and their relationship with Superman, much like, taking the Batman villains and relating their personal story to Batman, it's what it's all about. It's not about the big, grand, epic scale of it. It's, how does it relate to our hero personally? Number 9, he's never in real danger. So you always get these arguments, Superman, oh, he's so powerful, he's so unbeatable, there's no drama in all of that. Going back to what I just said, I totally disagree. Yes, Superman is about not the fact that he's so powerful on the outside, it's that he's so vulnerable on the inside, for God's sakes. You're talking about a guy who could take over the world if he wants to, but he doesn't. He takes his power and all he tries to do is help people. Why? Why, when any one of us who had that power would easily step on everyone else like they're ants? Why does he not do that? Okay? Why does he just try to help people? Why does he not, put himself above all of us? That's the story you want to tell, okay? You want to tell his internal struggle, not his external battles. It doesn't matter if he's fighting, Darkseid, okay? Tell me about what he's going through personally. What is he thinking about Darkseid? How does he feel about this guy who, again, has a complete different theology on life than he does? What can he do about that? That's what you want to do with Superman. And that's one thing that people so miss when they look at the character is, yes, he's vulnerable on the outside, but he's vulnerable on the inside. Number 10, print media is increasingly irrelevant. With Man of Steel, they did it where, again, he still works in a newspaper. I know in modern context, in some of the comic books, especially in the New 52, he went off to do his own thing, kind of a blog. But again, people still need the news. CNN.com, HollywoodReporter.com. The news is still out there, and people still want that credible source. It's just not in print anymore. It's online. People still write for these sites. It's just, New York Times publishes online. Washington Post publishes online. It's still about getting that news and getting those ads. It's just a little different in this day and age. So if it's not, the Daily Planet in print, it'd be the Daily Planet in digital form. And I think that's fine. Number 11, his rogues gallery is pretty weak. Again, that goes back to the whole thing where I think he has an excellent rogues gallery that, again, can match him physically, but you have to match each of them with his own personal story, Metallo is a character who is powered by his home planet. His home planet is killing him, essentially, Brainiac is someone who is all about saving life, saving a piece of life and destroying everything else. If you go by animated series rules, he comes from Krypton even as well. Zod is a person who, again, comes from his home planet, who wants to preserve Krypton and will kill everyone else because of it. Darkseid, going back to a theology, a difference of opinion. Parasite, a guy who feeds off other people's energy. There is a great rogues gallery within Superman when you tie it to him personally, and no better choice than Lex Luthor, okay? Lex Luthor is this guy who is a sinister billionaire who thinks he can buy everything, who thinks money is power, okay? And the thing he hates about Superman is that he sees he can't buy him. He can't make him do what he wants. And even if, that's why he tries to kill him, because the people love Superman because he is the beacon of hope. He doesn't understand a person who just wants to do good without getting anything in return. And the fact that he is physically dominant drives Luthor even more crazy. Because, again, going back to, he's a being who could take over the world if he wants to, but he doesn't want to. And Lex Luthor doesn't understand it. Number 12, he always plays second fiddle to Batman. Well, Batman, let's see here. Well, he's got, the gadgets. He's really smart. He's physically capable. He's got the cool car. He's got a butler. He's rich. He's a pretty cool guy, definitely, But at the same time, when you look at the characters, I prefer Superman, not because he's more physically dominant, because I think he stands for more than what Batman does. Batman's about digging into that pain and using it to hurt other people, where Superman is about not hurting people, about just being an example for everyone. Back when Zack Snyder and them were trying to think of their Man of Steel sequel, they decided to bring in Batman, which, as soon as they said that, I could not fucking believe it, because it was the stupidest thing ever. Stupidest thing ever, okay? But they painted themselves or wrote themselves into a corner, okay? The very first movie, what do? You bring in General Zod and his army of Supermen, okay? How do you go bigger than that? The only way to go bigger than that, Superman's arguably greatest villain, is you bring in another hero for him to fight, is what it was. And then along with that, you brought in his other greatest villain with Lex Luthor and Doomsday, and you literally just blew your load on some of the best things you could have done with Superman with over 6 or 7 films in 2 movies. And then what you did is you took Superman out of the movie. The Ultimate Cut has 30 more minutes than the theatrical cut, and it's all Clark Kent Superman stuff, so you could tell whether it was Zack Snyder or Warner Brothers. I think it was mainly Warner Brothers. They wanted to bring in Batman. They wanted to bring in Batman because they didn't believe in another Superman movie, which I can't say I blame them, because what they did and how Superman was handled. When Zack Snyder was hired on to do a Superman movie, I knew it wasn't going to go great, because of Zack Snyder's style. 300, Watchmen, Sucker Punch. No, you don't get Zack Snyder to make a Superman movie, okay? You get Steven Spielberg or J.J. Abrams to make a Superman movie. Zack Snyder made a pretty good Batman movie. He would have made a great solo Batman film too. But he wasn't the guy to make Superman. I'm sorry. Now, I will give him credit. What he did or what he shot, that was taken out and then added back in the ultimate cut. I like that movie. Honestly, the ultimate cut of Batman v Superman is one of my favorite, probably top 10 comic book movies. I'm not going to lie about that. In fact, I'm thinking about watching it because I'm talking about it right now. But after I saw that, I was curious. Even though I still wasn't a fan of Man of Steel, I wanted to see where he was going to go with Justice League, but they didn't let him. He had 2 Justice League movies and another Superman movie planned, a 5-film plan for kind of the evolution of Superman. But after the disaster, well, probably not disaster, but the underwhelming success of Batman v Superman, the plug got pulled, Warner Brothers got scared, and they became very reactionary. And while I don't love Man of Steel, while I don't think I'm not sure how I would have felt about where he went with the Justice League films, I'm very curious about what happened. I honestly, after seeing the ultimate cut of Batman v Superman, I think I would have liked where it went, but we'll never know. 13, making him darker ruins his appeal. Totally agree on this, what I've been saying. He is a beacon of hope to rise above the rest. And Man of Steel and Batman v Superman put him down in the dirt. That's not who the character is. At the end of Man of Steel, he kills Zod. Something I completely had a problem with. Not because he hasn't killed before. In the comics, he tries not to kill. He really does. But sometimes it happens. Same thing with Batman. He tries not to kill, but sometimes you got to do it. Okay? What I hated about Man of Steel is that he killed Zod in the first movie. Now, let alone the fact that we had Zod in the first film. But before we establish his character where he tries to be better than everyone else, tries to not kill people, he kills his first villain. And he screams about it like he's upset. And then what? Guess what? He moves on with his day. He goes on with his life. And that really bugged me. It wasn't that he killed Zod. It wasn't that he killed somebody. It was that he did it in the first film. Second film, maybe. First film, before we even established his moral compass, we've already led it astray. So that's what I have about that. And maybe making him darker, they think they're going to make him better. It's not. It's not at all. I mean, if you look at, I'd say, if that's your appeal, look at Smallville. Look at Smallville, okay, and Clark Kent being that beacon above all the other characters, and it worked for arguably 10 seasons. 7 seasons I'll give you, but it worked for a while, and I don't see why it wouldn't work in a movie. Number 14, it's hard to modernize his story. Bull crap. I think that's an excuse for lazy writing, okay? Look at the modern stories that have been told in the last 10 to 15 years of Superman, or even more. I think it's 20 years. You got Superman's Secret Origin, which I'll circle back to, Superman for All Seasons, Superman Birthright. I'm missing another one here. I forget. But those are the top 3 that come to mind as far as Superman Modern Origins. Oh, well, The Man of Steel by John Byrne, but that's, 30 years old or so. Out of those, my favorite is Superman Secret Origins by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank. Love it. Absolutely love it, okay? My first whole idea for that first Superman movie is based on that book. And it's about, he comes out and people are immediately suspicious of him, Lex Luthor wants to know, are you some, alien here to take over? You're not? Well, that doesn't seem right. General Lane's like, okay, well, you're this powerful being, what's your intentions with my daughter? Oh, you're noble? No, you're not, and then in this cynical world, okay, it's about him going to Metropolis, a place where people are used to being stepped on. He comes in, shows himself as Superman, and by the end of the book, everyone is, realizing that they help themselves. I mean, in a modern context, it's about believing in hope is what it is. And I think it's no better time than right now believing in hope. That's why I think the superhero genre is so big right now, because we do live in a cynical age and people want heroes to look up to, people that tell them that it's okay to do the right thing. And that's what Superman is. And that's what I think you can do with him in the modern context. I mean, you can even go back, add a little screwball with it. I mean, the scene I always tell people is in Smallville where Clark is just getting his X-ray vision. He's in the gym and he falls and he accidentally peeks into the girl's locker room and you see a big old smile on his face. I mean, throw that scene in there when he's just learning his powers and, how he might be possibly abusing them, but also learning to control them and why he needs to use them for good. Modernize them. There's completely a way to modernize the character. Warner Brothers, just call me and I'll tell you what you're doing wrong. All right, guys. And number 15 on the list, there's a lack of good source material. I like to quote Kevin Feige, or paraphrase Kevin Feige, head of Marvel Studios, on this, where someone was talking to him about, how he gets the stories for the Marvel Studio films. And he's like, well, I've got decades of Marvel storylines to choose from. You just have to adapt it. Rather than trying to make a completely new one, he just takes from the source material and doesn't do a direct adaptation. You should never do a direct adaptation from the story. I'm not about that at all. But you take the context of the story and you just adapt it. It sounds easier than what I'm giving it out to be, but I don't think it's as hard as what freaking Warner Brothers is making it seem like in their live action DC films. I mean, even the animated stuff that I've been talking about, Batman versus Robin, was, an adaptation of The Court of Owls, mixed in with, Damian Wayne in the middle of it, while not a direct adaptation of any, one storyline. It was a good story. And God, that would have been a great live action film. But I don't know what's going over there in their live action film division, but that's neither here nor there. But lack of source material, no. You're telling me in the 82-year history of Superman, you don't have at least a dozen stories that would be good for adaptation? I call bullshit on that. Hardcore 100% bullshit. It all boils down to laziness. So, Warner Brothers, like I said, I am open here. You call me back. I'll tell you exactly what to do. I'll get some of that cheddar, and you can make a $2 billion film for once. What do you say? All right, guys. Well, that is it for me. So, like I said, you can find this article on the Dayspring Discussions group, ranker.com. Written by the guy Aaron Edwards, who I think did a good job. He gave us these reasons, and then he'd explain why he thinks these reasons are wrong too. So the article itself, I'm not trashing on the article. It's as a guy who loves Superman, I think it's something that you can definitely discuss, and I can talk more and more about this, but I won't because I know I've gone on for long enough. But go look at the article, of course. Tell me what you think. Fire back, Facebook group. Twitter account, dayspringdiscussions@gmail.com. What do you think about this? Do you think the hero cannot be adapted because of his base, because of where he comes from, because of what he's supposed to stand for? Do you think the character does not work in a modern context? Fire back. I'll tell you why you're wrong, and we can discuss it, guys. Well, all right. Well, that's going to be it for me today. Got to go back and make sure my daughter isn't drawing on the walls or, doing something she's not supposed to. The sun has also decided to finally come out after 3 days here, so hopefully the grass will dry out enough to where maybe tomorrow I can do some yard work. That'd be nice and super and help me keep my sanity. So let me know what you guys are doing to keep your sanity during this time. And of course, remember to stay strong, enjoy your week, enjoy your life, and until next time, may the force be with us all.